Okay, we're here. That's Eric Kvam. I'm Jay Fidel. Welcome to Think Tech Talks here on a given Friday. Let's call this Energy Friday. Our topic today is going to be moving to 100% renewable energy. I did not select that topic. Eric suggested that topic. We're going to find out from him. And he is with the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii. That's a coalition of people in the energy business, stakeholders, I guess, and academicians, maybe a couple. We'll find out. And his company is Zero Emissions. And I remember, 2 years ago or so, you spoke to the Think Tech Hawaii Venture Capital Association meeting about energy, and that was an impressive discussion. So he's a very careful analyst, and so high credibility. Okay, so Eric, tell us about yourself and tell us about the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii, and why we should listen to you guys.
Thank you very much for having me on your show, Jay.
Sure, Eric.
First of all, Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii is an acronym. Its acronym is REACH. And
perfect. I see that.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Well, there's an alphabet soup of organizations that all begin with the letter H, so I thought I'd try to avoid that.
Good idea.
Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii, or REACH, is a trade association. It has members. Its members are in the renewable energy industry. Those members include my own company, Zero Emissions, which is a microgrid project development company. Includes the companies of my co-directors, Chris Menzel, Clean Energy Maui, and Alan Leonard of Green Power Projects, LLC. It also includes REC Solar, which as of today is now a strictly commercial PV project developer. It also includes Bright Energy Storage Technologies, which is developing a compressed air energy storage technology.
Oh, I want to hear about that.
Okay, I'm sure we can talk about energy storage, definitely. It is very timely. But to continue, I've been in the renewable energy business for 8 years. Had an interest in it for a longer time than that.
What was before the 8 years?
Before that, I was an attorney.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But it sounds like you're a recovering attorney now.
I found being an attorney to be one of the very most useful skills in the renewable energy business, because you have, I was a tax attorney among other things, and having a grasp of the tax incentives is absolutely crucial for project development, especially in Hawaii.
Right, especially with the statutes and all that.
The statutes.
And the changes and the regulations and who knows what.
Statutes, regulations. I've drafted six pieces of legislation for the current session.
Well, we got to find out what they are.
They all deal with renewable energy.
Okay.
4 of them are bills. 2 are resolutions.
Okay.
And we can
we'll go through that later. Yeah.
We can go through that later. But basically, just to give you a little background, when I arrived in Hawaii 11 years ago, I was looking at that time. I was interested in both solar PV and also hydrogen. I was very interested in the whole idea of a zero emissions economy, the zero emissions energy system, using solar to generate the electricity, storing it as hydrogen, running it through a fuel cell, and having an energy system that has zero emissions.
You use the past tense. I mean, are you less interested now?
Well, what I came to the realization is that if you've studied hydrogen, and I know people that are in the hydrogen business, but to the extent it has depended on fuel cell development, it's always been something that, we'll get there in 10 years. I was hearing that 10 years ago, and they're still saying that. So hydrogen is not really happening. I mean, I applaud the efforts to put hydrogen buses and fuel cell vehicles on the roads. But what is happening in Hawaii, of course, is photovoltaic solar energy. And, I'm sure you and your listeners know the tremendous growth that Hawaii's seen in that area. I got into the solar business basically 8 years ago.
Solar, meaning installing solar?
Developing solar projects, which essentially amounts to arranging the financing for solar projects. And got some good commercial projects developed. And about a year into that, I took an interest in the very big picture and signed up for my first PUC proceeding. So that had to do with net metering.
So this as a council?
Or
on behalf of your own company?
Right, as my own company.
Okay.
So Zero Emissions was a party to 5 different PUC proceedings, all having to do with renewable energy. That was an educational experience.
I'm sure it was.
in many ways, in many ways.
And you're willing to talk about it, right?
Willing to talk about it. Learn some lessons, some of them difficult lessons
I'm
from
sure.
that. And then for about a year now, I started the effort to organize REACH about a year ago. And because I needed a vehicle that would be more than just my own voice, speaking to policymakers, speaking to the PUC and to the legislators. And so,
Can I just, in
yeah, sure.
terms of speaking what to them? About anything?
Yeah.
Anything having to do with clean energy?
Addressing the issues of renewable energy.
Whatever would
Exactly.
come up.
Exactly.
So, okay, so the coalition is a dynamic organization. It's not about one issue.
No,
It's
no.
not about clean energy, because we
No.
all like that, but it's about the implementation of the initiative going forward, how it should be best done.
In part. I mean, REACH is an organization that has a vision, okay? And its vision is 100% renewable energy for Hawaii.
And that puts it a little further than most of the organizations who speak on this.
Well, I can't speak for other organizations, but the way I would articulate it is this, is that we are in the process of a transformation to an energy economy that is 100% renewable energy. And the reason I say that is because Hawaii sits, there are things that are beyond our control. And we are heavily reliant, as you know, on imported fuels for almost all of our transportation energy. And now I understand it's still about 85% of our electricity. And Hawaii's at the end of an 11,000-mile supply chain from the Persian Gulf for the petroleum that supplies most of that energy. And the reason we're at the end of a supply chain from the Persian Gulf is because Hawaii used to get a lot of its oil from the continental US, then from Alaska, then as those supplies ran out, then it became Indonesia, then it became China and South Vietnam, and now it's the Persian Gulf. So the reason why is simple. It's because those places where we had been getting our energy from, they're using it themselves. And the long-term prospect is that imported fuels for Hawaii are only going to get more scarcer and more expensive. And I can't say when imported fuels will stop flowing to Hawaii, but it will happen. It could happen sooner, it could happen later, but it will happen.
Aren't oil prices down right now?
Prices change constantly. Prices change.
But this
you
year,
can lose your shirt. You can lose your
this
shirt.
last couple of months have been
Right.
pretty good for us. Yeah.
We've seen a respite in oil prices.
But temporary.
But-
It's only temporary.
Looking at what I've tried to do is look at the very biggest picture, and which is to say that when imported fuels stop flowing to Hawaii, it could happen slowly, it could happen quickly, could happen for reasons that are unpredictable. There's no saying when that will occur, and so what we need to do is say, well, this will occur. Okay.
So you start out with the assumption that it will happen. One
Yes,
way or
that's
the
right.
other, because it's
That's
a
right.
matter of survival, and we'll be driven by the desire to survive to do this. Or are you saying that this coalition is going to come up with the steps by which, no.
No. Okay. What I'm saying is that we will arrive at 100% renewable energy
Yeah.
when imported fuels stop flowing here.
Yeah.
But we have a choice about what forms of renewable energy we're going to have and how much we're going to have of
I
them
see. So
when that happens.
when you say we will arrive at 100%, it's that we won't have any other percent of anything else coming in. and even if we haven't gone the distance to develop clean energy, it will be 100% because there'll be nothing else.
There will be nothing else.
Okay.
So, when that day arrives, it'll be in everyone's interest to have as much renewable energy as possible that satisfies as much, especially of our most critical needs, as possible. You mentioned, what is REACH's plan? REACH has a very simple plan for achieving 100% for renewable energy. And that plan is to get our utilities to do the planning for 100% renewable energy. For the utilities to set for themselves a planning goal of 100% renewable energy so that they can start doing, so that first of all we have agreement and we have their active participation that in that future when imported fuels stop flowing, either we'll have a grid that can operate on the renewable energy that's been developed by that time, or we won't. So it's a matter of the utilities' prosperity and business success to have a planning goal of 100% renewable energy. Once there's agreement on that goal, then we can talk about the how to get there. But that's what's, in my view, that's what's missing right now in the biggest picture for Hawaii renewable energy, that the proper planning goal. It's not saying that we'll get there all at once or that any particular kind of technology in any particular amount is necessary to get there. What's important right now is that there be an embracing of the goal, that the utilities want to plan for 100% renewable energy because that's going to be their future as well. And so the strategy, REACH's strategy for getting there is to convince our electric utilities to set 100% renewable energy as a planning goal.
Okay, well, let me put that in words that come to my mind
Okay.
after hearing you articulate it. And that is, so we're getting to 100% renewable because there won't be anything else. And so we have to understand that whatever the level and quality of the renewables are, that'll be it. That'll be it. That'll be 100%. And so the planning that's necessary here is to maintain, or rather to develop clean energy so that through 100% of clean energy, we can satisfy all the demand we have now. We have to build that up so it meets the entire demand that we have now.
What you want to do, okay, is start by once there's an agreement that on a goal of 100% renewable energy, that's what we're planning for. The next step is to say, well, how do we get there? And the next,
Why wouldn't we agree, though? I mean, what's to disagree about? Is it maybe you're saying that we may not agree on the fact that oil will go away?
Mm-hmm.
Some people feel that oil is forever and it'll always be out there, and because it'll always be out there, and the price, although subject to fluctuation and probably long-term increase, it will be manageable at least to some extent. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't write oil off completely. Mm-hmm. And so I think what you're saying is that those people will not agree with the other people who say that we've got a plan for fully 100%. We have to operate on the assumption that one day there'll be no oil. Mm-hmm. And that is the disagreement you talk about. Is that what I'm getting that right?
I'm not sure that's it. I
But
mean,
what is the agreement that you want to have?
I want the agreement to be that if 100% renewable energy is in our future, okay, that we want to arrive there through intention and planning and not through chaos and crisis, okay?
Okay, so the agreement is that we must have a plan.
The agreement is that this is an appropriate goal for making for planning and making wise decisions on how to get there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's take a short break. We'll come back, and then we're going to hear the specific steps that the coalition is
Okay.
talking about, because
Okay.
I'm really, I want to compare those steps against the steps you talked about earlier with hydrogen and all that,
okay.
and see how your thinking has
Right.
changed and thus the coalition's thinking has changed.
Okay.
So that's Eric Kvam. He has organized the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii. That's REACH. We're going to talk about where you're reaching to. I guess you're reaching to 100% clean energy is where you're reaching to. This is Think Tech Talks. We call it Energy Friday, and the title of our episode is Moving to 100% Renewable Energy. We'll be right back after this very brief break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're Think Tech Talks here on Energy Friday. Really enjoy this kind of discussion. Moving to 100% renewable energy. Exactly how do we do that? With Eric Kvam. He is the organizer of Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii. He's also the principal of Zero Emissions, an energy company in Hawaii. So I guess we're gonna take a little time here, Eric, and talk about exactly how the coalition, in its consensus feels, what the steps are going to be to get to 100%. But first, what is? I guess the question I would frame to you is, what is the agreement involved that starts this journey?
I'd say the agreement is
Because maybe everybody really at some level does agree.
that might be.
I mean,
Yeah.
I agree.
Right. Okay.
And if I agree, it's
Yeah.
got to be right,
Yes. The agreement is that planning for 100% renewable energy will lead to our prosperity and business success. Okay.
Nobody should argue with that. Nobody.
It seems
should.
an inarguable proposition to me.
Yeah.
But we were talking during the break just a little bit about how I kind of came to this.
Yeah.
And it came to this after 7 years of doing these PUC proceedings. And when I began with probably a viewpoint that's common to other people in the renewable energy business, which is seeing the utility as an adversary. Okay, seeing it as a confrontational situation, and I had to go through some difficult experiences, particularly in the feed-in tariff docket. Okay, before I started, put myself in the utility's shoes. Okay, and putting myself in their shoes as the sole customer for any kind of large-scale renewable energy, I see themselves as just besieged and bombarded with proposals. Buy this form of renewable energy, buy my project, buy this, buy that. And so I began to take an interest in, well, what is their planning process? How do they look at these things? And so that caused me to start looking at, what is their planning process built around? Utility, in my opinion, didn't have a very strong planning process for a long time. They didn't need it. If you needed more power, you just build another power plant. Peaking power, build a peaking power plant. If you have a transmission bottleneck, you build something over there. But with the realization that Hawaii needs to plan for 100% renewable energy, they started acting. And the main way that they acted was to develop these, with the support of entities like National Renewable Energy Laboratory, to develop computer models for each of the grids of the HECO company grids, okay? And these computer models, they're called the General Electric models for short, and they develop computer models for each of the grids on Big Island, Maui, and Oahu. And what these models do is they tell you two things. I'm making it very simple, okay? They tell you, you take an option, any option at all, whether it's a generation option for renewables, whether it's a demand option like time of use rates, whether it's a storage option, batteries, whether it's a transmission option like inter-island cable. You can put the assumptions of the option into the model, and the models will tell you two things. They'll tell you, one, will this work with our grid? Will we get the physical performance, frequency, maintenance of frequency and voltage if we do this option? If it doesn't, if an option doesn't work, then no one's ever going to consider it. The second thing they do is that they can give a prediction about what is the cost and benefit of this option going to be. And so it took the utilities, back to the history, it took the utilities about 5 years to develop these models.
From starting when?
They've been complete for a couple of years now, so it's probably
So
started about 7 years ago.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that dovetails perfectly with 2008, which was the date of the Clean Energy Agreement and
Right.
the creation of the Clean Energy Initiative and all.
Right, and they were starting to look at that. And so, so it took them a long time to develop these models, but they haven't really started using them yet. They've just only in the last year and 2 years started to apply them to their planning decisions in the area of renewable energy.
And this is all in-house in the utility. Is this part of the IRP, that planning process? Where does
No.
that fit? Why don't you just tell me where that fits?
IRP was a publicly conducted planning process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it did not use these models that I'm referring to.
Well,
Okay.
gee, there's a huge. May I take a moment to say there's a huge disconnect there.
There's a
how many planning processes can you tolerate? Now that public planning process involved years. It involved multiple iterations with the PUC, with the public, with 60 or 70 stakeholders. It involved real Sturm and Drang,
Yes.
if you will. And but you're saying that it's not connected to the internal modeling which the utility has been working on. So which one is more important? Which one should prevail?
What's important is the modeling that's going to be done, that has been done and will be done with these General Electric models.
The ones inside the utility.
They're not inside
Can
the
I get a
utility.
copy?
That would be a challenge. Okay, it's been a challenge. They're actually managed by Hawaii Natural Energy Institute, and there's an agreement between HNEI and the electric companies to use them. But it was these models that were used by the Public Utilities Commission for a continuing study of ways to achieve the RPS goals. Okay, so when the PUC hired General Electric to do some modeling on different scenarios to see, whether there in fact are pathways to get to the RPS goals that would save ratepayers money. And the preliminary results of those studies are that yes, there are pathways to get there at a savings to ratepayers. And that's what's important about the models, because once we have that agreement that I spoke of, then we can talk, then the conversation can get to how do we get there? And the first step in that process of how do we get there is going to be evaluation of all of the plausible options. This is what has not occurred so far.
But that's in the models.
It's possible to do that with the models.
Well, yeah, but didn't you say that, the options are in the models, and the options will tell us whether and how well a given option, rather the model will tell us how well a given option will work, if at all. And then we can look at the results of that modeling, and we can say, well, we should take this option, but not at that option.
Right.
And this one's going to cost that much and yield this much benefit, and that one's not as good. And so we can make some pretty interesting choices. If we believe the models, we can make some pretty interesting choices. It may not give us the exact path, but it will exclude options that are of no value.
Well, yes, I think that's essentially correct. Let me give you a concrete example. Okay, about a year and a half ago, in a process called Reliability Standards Working Group, as a result of that, the PUC directed MECO to look at options for reducing the curtailment of wind generation on Maui. Okay, and they did that because that had been recommended to them by the Commission's consultant, a man named Brendan Kirby. And so the PUC gave that direction to MECO. What did MECO do? They went to their models. They came up with 20 options, 20 different ideas. I'm approximating this because I had to take down the information very quickly when it was discussed at last September's Asia Pacific Clean Energy Summit. And they looked at about 20 different options for reducing wind curtailment on Maui, increasing the amount of wind that would be used on Maui and decreasing the amount that would be wasted. And they said, okay, run through our models, do these work? Yes, they work. Let's look at the cost benefits. Maybe half of them yielded a positive benefit, that is, would result in savings to ratepayers. And of those, they thought that 3 of them gave a really significant savings to ratepayers. And so the announcement was, we're going to follow these 3 options. We're going to reduce the curtailment from the wind generation from 30% down to about 3%.
That's a substantial reduction.
And yeah, and this is right, exactly. And so that's what we want the utilities to be doing. Okay, but we want them to be doing it on a much broader scale than they have done so far. But I'm convinced that there are renewable options, and not just generation, but also demand and storage and transmission options that could be put in place. What they need to do is find the best options, do those first, and make a plan to do the ones that provide the biggest benefit.
Okay, so let's seize on what you were talking about.
Okay.
So we got to go and look at the models, and there's 20 options for minimizing curtailing in Maui.
Right.
3 of them look like they're the best. One of them is simply stop curtailing down to 3%. From, what did you say, 30% to 3%?
No, there were different arrangements of like, what do we do with the fossil fuel generation? And each option
What
is...
are the 3 options that you're looking at?
I don't recall the details.
An option's a complicated business.
But basically, it might be a combination of grid improvements and phase out of certain imported fuel generating capabilities on Maui, so that the savings is that, oh, you're burning less fuel, okay, and if the cost of the improvements and you're buying wind energy at a lower cost, you're going to yield a net benefit.
So each
there are
one of
different
these 3
combinations.
options is a plan in itself.
Right, each one is something different that they can do to take more of the wind generation onto the grid and reduce their fossil fuel.
Well, when
burning
you
on
say
Maui.
the 3 look best,
Right.
do you mean that those 3 would be executed at the same time, in sequence, in the same proportions or different proportions?
There was a certain order that the utility thought it would be best to do them in, and so once they execute these, then what the utility's prediction is from the models is that we'll be able to go from 30% curtailment down to about 3%.
The 30 to 3% is not just one option; it's all 3 options.
It's a cumulative effect of
got it.
adopting those
I
options.
misunderstood. Okay, so now it's on the table. There's the
Right.
3 options. We can get from 30 to 3. That sounds really pretty good.
It is good.
What happens?
What happens? That's good. That's going to yield a net savings to ratepayers. Maui ratepayers will have lower energy costs as a result of thinking this through.
Reducing the curtailment, yeah.
Right, reducing the curtailment because they have the ability to study different options and figure out which ones are going to give us the greatest benefit for the least cost.
Well, one thing is clear is that if you curtail, you're dumping the energy on the ground, and you're wasting it. You're throwing it away as much as anything can be thrown away. And if that is worth millions of dollars over the course of a year, that's a terrible waste.
Right.
So this is presumably avoids that waste to a large degree. With it's 27% over 30%. That's a lot of percent. That's you have a huge savings there in reducing it that much.
Right.
And so I guess we'll have to talk about this after we come back. We'll take a little break, but I'd like to know what happened. I mean, it sounds like this is a wonderful scientific experiment. And how do you actually implement the option, which presumably has some detail in it, and make it happen and therefore reduce the curtailing from 30% to 3%?
Yeah.
We'll be right back. That's Eric Kvam, Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii. This is Think Tech Talks. We're talking about energy on Friday. We're talking about moving to 100% renewable energy. We will do this. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We're live. We're getting to the meat of exactly how this works, this planning process in moving to 100% renewable energy with Eric Kvam. He's the founder of the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii, called that REACH. He's also the principal of Zero Emissions, which is what, an energy consulting company, development company?
It's a microgrid development company.
Microgrid development company. Gee, let's know more about that sometime too. And we're talking about moving to 100% renewable energy. So here we have a modeling which identifies options, and you could select the top 3 options, and you could learn from that whatever the sequence is and the integration of those options are. You can get from 30% curtailment in Maui to 3%, okay?
Right.
So that's on the table. What, at a meeting sometime recently, the last 6 months or so.
That was announced in September, and I don't know exactly, how they're doing in terms of the implementation, but I trust that they are doing it. And they had a time frame.
This is MECO.
Yeah, this is MECO. They probably had a time frame of a couple of years to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's probably ongoing right now.
All
as we
right.
speak.
So presumably, if they are doing it according to the very same model, which says you save all this, curtailment, then when it's done, there will be only 3% curtailment instead of 30.
That's the expectation.
Okay, so that's a good thing.
That's a very good thing.
So REACH is in favor of that.
We're in total favor of that. Okay, and what we want to see is we want our utilities to apply that planning process across the board, okay? Once they have that planning goal of 100% renewable energy, we would like to see them do an evaluation of all plausible options, okay? Generation options, demand side options, storage options, transmission options. And what we're convinced is that there are many, many options that will yield a net benefit for the utilities and for ratepayers that will reduce people's bills. And it's only a question of deciding which ones are the very best, okay? Because those are the ones we want to do first. And that'll lead to the prosperity of our utilities, and it will be to the prosperity of ratepayers as well.
Oh, it sounds terrific, Eric.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems to me that why not? Let's do it. What's holding us back? What's holding us back?
What's holding us back is that the way I see it as a matter of because this planning process is going to occur by the utilities. I mean, entities like REACH, renewable energy industry in general, policymakers, we're the spectators, okay, to the basing planning. We should know the modeling results that the utility is getting, okay, and be able to comment on them and, you know, point out things to them. But ultimately, for a plan to get to 100% renewable energy to be implemented, it has to be the utilities plan, okay? Because if they want it, then they will do that. And one of the big picture problems is that this is something that I've learned over the course of 7 or 8 years, is that our policymakers will not make the utilities do something that the utilities indicate they don't want to do.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
for example,
Right.
if you say, look, there's a bill pending right now. I mean, it's really a strange bill. It says, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think it should go anywhere, but it says, we the legislature, order the PUC to order the utility to allow all connections by
Yes.
by PV. Just
Yes.
you must, you know.
Oh, yes.
This reflects a level of ignorance that is just hard to understand, because you can't put everybody in the world on the grid. It doesn't work. You have to have storage. Your point.
Right.
And so for this to be flying around the legislature is pretty scary business. I can't.
For the utility, yeah.
Well, for us, I mean, because if the utility is forced to take all this, and it's okay, you said so, you told me to do this, then it comes crashing down.
Yes.
And then we have to ride away to Germany for new equipment that will take 6 months to get here. And we don't have any power, and our society falls apart. I mean, I really worry about that kind of thing. If you want the legislature to determine how to run a utility, you're asking for big trouble.
Yeah, and I think the legislators know that. You know, I mean,
so.
they steer clear of
Well, that's your point. It's the legislature is reluctant to step into the shoes of the utility.
Exactly.
Because the utility knows best, or at least presumably, hopefully knows best
Right.
about all these technological issues
Right.
and parameters and danger points and so forth.
right, and so but it, you know, most crucially, it's that, you know, we got to get the utility to want this. Okay, right now, they're not clear. They're not clear. You know, I believe.
So what would you
there's
say to them? They're out there. What did you say?
What do I
Right
say to them?
That camera over
Okay,
there.
okay. What
This
do I
is
say
Eric
to them?
Graham and the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii speaking.
Okay, what do I say to them is I ask them questions. And 2 questions I would ask them are, what is your plan for providing the energy we need when imported fuels stop flowing to Hawaii? And what would you like your business to look like when imported fuels stop flowing to Hawaii? I think those are the questions that are most likely to get the utility thinking about the desirability for themselves of a planning goal of 100% renewable
Okay,
energy.
now you become the utility. I make you the utility. You're now utility, and you heard these questions. What are the answers you want to hear?
That I want to hear from the utility? Yes, it makes sense. Okay, to us. We want to stay in business. We want to stay in business. Everyone's jobs and salaries depends on that.
So yes, Eric, you're right.
Yes.
We will do what?
Okay. We're going to embrace a planning goal of 100% renewable energy. Okay, we're going to start that process.
With the modeling.
We're going to start, I call it evaluating. We're going to start evaluating, you know, all the options, and there are lots of options, okay? The options that are available to us, so we can start making a plan to get there. And you know, we'll pick the handful that we can do well, that'll give us the biggest benefit. And while we're doing that, then we can reevaluate them all again, because you know technology changes. Okay?
So you have to
Prices
model and
change.
model and model.
You have to. You're flexible in your
How
plan
do you
as
know
you
they're
go
not
along.
doing this now?
I'm sorry.
How do you know they're not doing this now?
They're starting. Okay, I mean, I've been watching them as closely as I can for 8 years now.
Sure.
Okay, and so I'm paying attention to when I see them doing that. We've had two concrete evidences. One I told you about, the Maui wind generation curtailment study. Okay, and the second one had to do with this. They did their own inter-island cable study. Okay, again, using these General Electric models.
What one was that?
It was just, it was the study results themselves were included in a request to the Commission for reimbursement for the cost of doing the study, okay?
How long ago?
Oh, this is just months ago. Okay, so as I said, I mean, the work was probably commissioned a year ago or so. So, as I said, they're at the beginning of this process. At least that's what it looks like to me. And you know what REACH wants to do is encourage them to, again, nothing's going to really happen until they set a planning goal of 100% renewable energy. Okay, it's just a decision, but it's a very key thing because it's saying this is what we want. Okay, we want to prosper in the future.
It's a recognition.
Yeah, it's a recognition that
they got a plan for the 100% renewables.
That this is their future.
And they got to go there. I mean, I think.
Well, not me telling them that they have to go there, but they have to.
They have to go there.
Yeah.
So okay, so gee, I'm not sure there's really all that much contention involved. It sounds like there's already some planning going on. So what should they be doing that they're not doing? I think at one point you mentioned a little while ago is transparency. And you said that you were not able to get the modeling. It sounds to me like HNEI has the modeling, and maybe HNEI would share it with you. I mean, after all, you're an interested party, and you have a coalition and so forth. And it sounds to me there's a fair chance you'll be able to see it. No?
Yeah. Well, this is that's the phase of the process I call the how process. How will we get to 100% renewable energy?
Yeah.
And again, I see the utilities as being at the center of the planning for that they're going to be the ones to make the plan.
I agree with you absolutely. You know why? Because nobody else is. That's why.
Yeah, and I mean, and because if anyone can make a plan. Okay, I can make a plan. REACH could make a plan. Other people, entities can offer plans. The PUC could come up with a plan. The legislature could come up with a plan. The only plan that's going to amount to anything is the one that the utilities implement, which means it'll be the one that the utilities themselves make. Yeah. But you asked about transparency, and so, assuming that it is the utilities that do this planning, it's only, the renewable energy industry cannot help them in that process unless we know what the results are when they
of the modeling.
Right, what their evaluations are of the different options that are available to them.
Okay, so I make you king. And I give you the modeling, every piece of modeling that you want, however you get it all. It's on your desk or your computer. You know the options that have been considered. You know the General Electric model and I guess software model. And you have it all in front of you, and now it's your turn to speak on it because as part of the transparency is the possibility of feedback. So how does that, in your mind, in the way you see this properly unfolding, what happens?
Well, they have to, the modeling results, they will do evaluations, and it's not all modeling. You have to consider environmental effects and other economic effects as well.
Right,
of
some
options.
non-strictly data kind of thing.
I don't want to say that, I don't want to mean to apply, but it's where you have to start with, okay? Will it work? What are the economics of any given option? Once they do those evaluations, they have to then they'll have the basis for making a plan, okay? Because they can say, well, we'll do these options.
Which part do you want to see, though?
I want to see all of it. Why?
Okay, I'm just talking about the iterative process.
Okay.
If you have transparency, such as in the IRP process, which is questionable actually in some ways. But
Right.
so now you get all the modeling that you hope to
Right.
get. You have it all here. What happens? What's the interactive process that goes after that?
It's important, for the utility success that they share their
They
modeling
do. Let's
results.
assume
and
they do.
Okay,
What happens?
that's a good thing. Then,
Okay.
then we talk to them. We talk to
Well-
them and share our views. They may.
How do you develop your views? And this is highly technical stuff, isn't it? Do you have
they've got-
members in the coalition who would opine about technical issues? Or would the coalition
well-
hire experts from, other places to opine on the options and the choice of options and the implementation of the options?
Perhaps in the future, okay. I mean, right now the members have their own companies. I mean, the members know about renewable generation, right, or storage, as the case may be. That's not an issue. But there's the bigger process is one of planning, and yes, it takes an engineering understanding to understand exactly what those evaluations mean, what the modeling results mean.
Okay.
But it doesn't take, you don't have to be an electrical engineer to understand the evaluations that are being made and what the decisions are that are going to be made based on them. Doing the evaluations is only the first step in making a plan, okay? And the rest of the plan is going to change over time.
Oh yeah. Soon
And so,
all of this has got to be dynamic.
And so, but where we'll all be better off is that there is a plan. Right now, there is no plan.
What would a
There
plan
is no
look
plan.
like? I mean, you gave earlier
Yeah.
your plan
Right.
as you came into it, which has been eclipsed by
Okay.
many events in the
Yeah.
meantime. But what kind of a plan would you see? Just as an example,
Okay.
what would it
Let me-
look like?
Yeah, let me give you an example. Okay, just looking at electricity. Right now, we're at about like 15%, and we've done done evaluations, very broad scope set of evaluations of all the options, and we decided that there are two things that give a really big benefit for the cost. One of those is substation upgrades, okay, to accommodate lots more distributed PV generation on the circuits, okay. That by doing that, we'll easily achieve 40% renewable 40% renewable targets just with solar alone, because now you won't have distribution circuit limits, okay, as affecting the amount of PV
So the
that you
circuits
on the
get
grid.
bigger.
Not that the circuits get bigger, but the question becomes, instead of how much PV can you put on a circuit, how much PV can you put on the system and the grid as a whole? Okay?
Because you've expanded.
Because you can have two-way flow of power from a circuit
Got it.
onto the grid.
Got it. So
okay?
right now, you keep hearing that that you can't, that according to the utility, that you can't put more than X amount
Exactly.
of PV on a quote circuit,
Right.
and if you do that, then there'll be negative consequences of
Right.
one kind or another.
Potentially. So they need to do the engineering work to
But you're saying you can put equipment
right.
and the substation, sort of what do you call it?
Yeah.
A more advanced substation
Right.
technology to change that arrangement,
Right.
so that you can put more on in that circuit, because that circuit is actually part of a larger.
Right.
It feeds into the grid in general, so you don't have those limitations and risks.
Right.
And it's not the same thing as storage, but it is an interconnect question.
Right.
Is what you're saying.
Right. It's an option.
It's an
okay?
option.
It's an option.
So
for
is
them
this
to
an
do.
option that has already been selected as a good thing?
No, not at all, okay? I mean, not that I can tell anyway. Now, I suspect that's a very good option for them, okay? Certainly the solar industry thinks it's a great option to pursue. But right now, I see the utility as not being because they haven't done that systematic evaluation of all options, that they don't really know whether that's a really good option for them to be pursuing in the short term.
So you would want, okay, let me just
so-
sort of pin
so-
this down.
so-
You would want them to use this modeling for other options for which they have not used it yet.
I want them, right, to look at plausible options, and see, they need to convince themselves. It's not up to me to convince them that that's the best one. They have to convince themselves that that's a good thing, going to be a good thing for them to do. Once they do that, then we'll see the takeoff in renewable generation that will be to the benefit of everyone,
So we'll
including
have a
especially
plan.
utilities.
And this is the plan that's based on the modeling and the evaluation process you're
Right.
talking about. This is not the IRP plan.
It's not
You
IRP.
haven't mentioned that, so I assume that's really not what we're talking about here today. That's not, either the process or the result is not really as good as far as you're concerned. So the question then is, you want them to understand, to accept the notion that they have got to do this, and how would that be achieved?
Well, again, it would be a process by which they once they've decided that they want 100%, that they want to plan for 100% renewable energy. The first step would be doing those evaluations. Second step.
But you're saying that if they decide to do, if they agree, which I think they probably do, at least in public anyway, it seems to be, every time you hear a public statement, they're saying they're on board with clean energy. And they know that at some point they're going to have to go all the way to clean energy, whether it be 2030 or not. But the question is, this planning process, it sounds to me like you would like to get them to look at more options and make this sort of scientific determination of options in-house through this existing method, considering all options in all areas of option selection. So what's the coalition's statement to the utility about that? We'd really like you to do it. Is that what you're saying?
It'll be for it'll ensure their prosperity and business success. Okay, to start that process and to invest the resources in doing that work. Definitely, yeah.
I can only close with recollection that in March 20, I want to say March 24th, 5th, and 6th, thereabouts, there's a Maui conference, which sounds like it's very interesting.
Yes.
Probably right on point with what you're talking about, Eric. And it's called the Utility of the Future.
Exactly.
It probably has a lot to do with getting from here to 100% renewables, and the process and the planning and the modeling, and I kind of agree that the utility is where the best planning can be done because of their knowledge and the fact that they're hands-on about it.
Right.
And the question is how we make sure that happens, and that's I guess what your coalition is about.
It's changing the utilities' collective mindset, and the way to do that is to ask them questions.
You should go to the conference.
I'm planning on.
Okay,
Yes.
get your airline ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Eric Kvam, founder and I guess as chief spokesman of the Renewable Energy Action Coalition of Hawaii. This is Think Tech Talks. This is Energy on Friday, and we're talking about moving to 100% renewable energy, which is really what's in everybody's best interest. Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you, Jay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.